What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holt's back again with another e-commerce conversations. I hope all is well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Kaleigh, what's up?
I'm just here in Austin where you are. I'm new here. I'm soaking it up. I'm liking it so far. And yeah, we're going to talk about AI. So that's all I've been doing lately is working on stuff related to AI.
Well, you and I have gone back. Geez, I feel like it's probably approaching a decade
I
since
think so.
your time where you were writing for Shopify. Why don't you give our listeners a real quick rundown of who the heck you are and what the heck you do?
Yeah, so I have done content marketing as a freelancer slash agency for 12 years now. And yes, I think you were one of the very first case studies I did for Shopify for Beard Brand a million years ago. So kudos to you for still hanging in there and being around. A lot of those brands have come and gone. And now these days, I am shifting more into everything AI because that's where content is moving. I've been studying it as part of a graduate program. Lots of interesting stuff going on, but still freelancing, still working with a lot of kind of B2B SaaS companies, largely still within the e-commerce ecosystem, which is where I like to be because that's where I've been. And yeah, just trying to stay current with all the change that's happening right now.
Yeah, I gotta imagine like your field is really hit hard. Like it just the commoditization of writing through AI, where there's basically I don't know, like how do you see that shift? Like how do you see because I think the temptation is there for so many brands to just be like, oh, we'll just run it through AI and crank out, whatever it generates. What are you seeing in the marketplace? What are people doing?
Yeah, it's a real spectrum. I think some people are still very resistant to it because it kind of removes the art of the craft of writing, and I certainly understand that. Other people are all in and they're so far ahead. These tools are so incredible with what they can do. So there's a lot of efficiency gains, I think, to be had. There's a lot of outsourcing the tedious parts of writing. So even like if you have a huge catalog of products, writing product page descriptions can be a real slog. So they're great for things like that. There are new use cases every day. And then there are a lot of people who are kind of in the middle, who are just starting to, they'll learn about them, to get hands-on with them, to experiment. And so I think it's really a spectrum. And I'm probably in the trying very hard to be super curious and get very hands-on piece of that bell curve. But what about you? How do you feel about AI? Are you
Yeah,
using it?
well, I mean, I think it's going to fundamentally change our the way we operate. Just like 10 or 15 years ago, what Shopify did for e-commerce operators to be able to create a store, in 15 minutes. We're going to see that same kind of advancement with AI, where you can spin up a business super quickly without a lot of resources. I do think there is I think the roles kind of move away from production and more towards like curators, like
Mhm.
creative curators. Like how do you curate and how do you prompt the right way and how do you refine that prompt or just take what was prompted or generated and then put your own spin on it so it does still have that human touch. I kind of
Yeah.
think, but I was blown away with OpenClaw, and that really changed my perception as to what AI is going to do for businesses, basically creating your own agent. They use the word agents. I like to think of it as a like an AI team member. So
Mhm.
it's like you've got to hire a team member and you onboard them, you create an email and you give them, the guidance to allow them to be efficient in their role. And I think that's going to be pretty cool. I haven't set up my own OpenClaw though, but I don't know if you've dallied into that or not. Or I know we've talked kind of briefly about like the moral philosophy of AI. Like
Yeah.
that's something that kind of gets you You interested?
Oh yeah. So that's the graduate course that I've been taking is all about the philosophy and ethics of AI. So last semester we really got into the weeds on the mechanics of the systems thinking of how these tools retrieve information, but also the developers who are building them and what are the guardrails that they're building into these and how do they make decisions because there's bias with any decision making process. And I think that's very interesting with all of this because there is a lot of humanity still kind of behind the curtain that we don't know about, but we're seeing more and more tools like Claude are a little bit more open source so we can get a look behind the curtain and see how they're making those decisions. OpenAI is not as open with their policies on those types of things. So yeah, I think there's lots of interesting conversations to have about that piece of this puzzle. Not super e-commerce or retail focused necessarily, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are the concerns, or what are the things that people should be aware of? What kind of biases are built into these tools?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things to remember is that these tools currently are operating based on existing information, right? So they can't create net new anything. They're always summarizing existing material. And so existing material is written by humans, and there's bias in human perspective. People have different experiences, they have different thoughts and feelings about things. So, what we have to remember is that these tools are working off of information that has that already built in. So, we need to be really mindful of what are the things that maybe it's pulling from that could color the new things that it's outputting. And so it's a little bit of an existential, do we care about this? I think some people really care a lot. I think some people think, well, that's how humans would research and write something anyway, so it's not that different. But there's a lot of conversation happening around that. And so it can get fairly heated, and it's been really interesting to hear different perspectives on this, especially in the classroom. People from different countries, people with different levels of work experience, professional experience, and it's really all over the map. But I would say for me personally, of course I want to be mindful of bias. I'm a journalist first and foremost, so I want to do my own homework and I want to fact check and I want to make sure I'm putting out the best possible piece of anything that I put my name on. So, yeah, it's a real spectrum.
I uh I kind of have this core belief that if you're not arguing with AI every once in a while, then you're not. And then I catch myself getting into these arguments with AI, which I then recognize this is a complete waste of time. Like, I don't know if I'm going to win it, or I don't know if like my conversation goes into its learning process or not. Like, does it have an effect on it? Or am I just completely wasting my time by doing that?
So, what kind of things do you argue about with it? Does it not
Well,
follow your instructions?
no, no, no. Like, it'll be more about, so I'll go into my libertarian kind of rants, and, you know, anarcho-capitalist leanings, and argue about the purpose of government. Will be like a one of my random tangents, for example. Um, like, I'll see the inherent bias towards like a democracy,
Hmm.
as a rule of law, and it. Yeah. So I mean, I disagree with it.
Yeah,
Like, I disagree with its take on things.
yeah. Do you feel like those debates are productive for you? Do you feel like having the back and forth is,
Well, I enjoy
uh,
it.
yeah,
Like, I
yeah, you're
enjoy
clearly
debating.
getting something from it.
Yeah. There is it's funny, like, you're an X user as well. Getting on that platform and like the public interactions with Grok and
Hmm.
how people interact with Grok. Um, a lot of people defer thinking to the AIs and to
Hmm.
the Groks. And I don't know. I didn't do my journalism on it, but I saw like a tweet about how, people who lean on AI a lot are actually seeing a decline in their cognitive abilities. So I mean, I don't know, like, the moral conundrum of that as well,
Yeah.
if that's been things y'all have explored.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge piece of this puzzle is it's much easier to outsource decision making to AI because it sounds very reasonable. Much of the time, it really puts out quite convincing outputs 99% of the time. And so, yes, there's a little bit of fear and anxiety in general. What are we doing here when it comes to are we going to use our own decision making facilities, like our own experiences, or are we just going to ask through a brief interaction with your tool of choice how you should feel about it? And funny enough, I think in personal interactions more than professional, more and more people that I know are doing this. They've stopped going to therapy. They've stopped talking to friends about sensitive issues because that comes with a little bit of baggage too. And instead they're interfacing with Claude or with ChatGPT. And so I think that is very interesting as far as is this going to have long-term effects? Is it going to make us less social animals? Are we going to defer more to interacting with this kind of like 100% of the time always available, always ready to chat type of tool? So it's kind of a blessing and a curse. And I think there's a lot of levels to that. It's really nuanced and it's not just as simple as, oh, well, this tool exists, I should use it. It's, ooh, should I use this? Is this helpful? Is this productive? What are your thoughts?
Oh, come on, man. I'm brought you on here for your takes, you know? Nobody
I
wants
wanna
to hear my
I
take.
I know how I feel about it, but I'm always curious, like, how do
Yep.
other people feel about it? I wanna get outside my own bubble.
Yeah, well, let's start with you then. How do you feel
Yeah.
about it? Like, where do you lean on the AI spectrum? Is it the
I
next great thing?
I think it's the next great thing. I would not say I'm like an accelerationist. You're either a doomer or an accelerationist. I'm skeptical about it. I do think it's really, really useful. I also use it for personal, interpersonal, how do I deal with this situation sometimes, just as a sounding board. I don't always defer to it, of course. I still go talk to other human beings and use that as my primary source of making decisions. But I I have a lot of anxiety about, like, young people especially and how they'll use these tools because, I mean, I'm 37 years old. I grew up like, I had a childhood pre-internet, pre-social media, and so I feel like there's this real distinct futuristic upbringing now, and you have kids, so I, of course, wanna hear your take on this too, but I had the experience of n having none of that growing up, and so I've got to pick and choose what I use, and I feel like it's so omnipresent now, it's so integrated already with the human experience that it's just such a different reality that they're growing up in, and so I hope that kids and young people and even adults, because I see a lot of adults doing the outsourcing to AI thing, I hope we still talk to each other. I hope we still meet face to face and go to coffee and have a human therapist and do all those things that I found to be really, really humanity, special human experience focused, really valuable, not replaceable by AI. I think AI is a nice supplement, but I would never replace those things fully. And there's a whole other conversation and a whole other slew of thoughts and feelings I have about the art piece of all this. But when it comes to the like person to person interaction, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I think so how I tend to use it of course is like brainstorming for work, coming up with
Mhm.
ideas, product names. Um and then I recently did my labs with Function Health, which
Mm, I need to
they've
do that.
integrated. Oh, yeah, I got a referral code for you. You get
Oh, please.
25 bucks off. And it was great because they integrated an AI chat bot, but it'll automatically pull in all the data and the numbers
Love that.
and gave me recommendations on my dietary goals. And of course, I just trusted it because it seemed like it made sense to me. Like it gave me enough information and insight that I'm like, okay, well, this sounds real. And implemented those dietary changes. And, within a couple of weeks, my resting heart rates dropped 5 beats. And
Amazing.
it's really cool to see uh, all this. And I feel like I get better care from an AI bot than I could do with a doctor because it's like, I
Mm,
don't know all the question to ask when I need to
yeah,
ask them. It's like, oh, now I have this thought. I can just go to the bot now and ask it. As you said earlier, 24/7, always available and has like just a wealth of information to pull off of. So, I'm bullish on that. You talked about the kids too. Like Grok rolled out this like little kids Rudy the raccoon or something like that. And I remember I gave it to one day I was excited about it, so I had shared it with my son, who's I think 5 years old at the time, and you could tell a story, and it could craft a story, and it would just go on, and I could just see like my son, if left to that device, he would spend all day generating some kind of story for him, a perfectly tailored. Like he would not be able to step away from it. And I'm like,
Mm,
this is not going to be healthy for him to grow up in that kind of environment. So I've stopped doing that with him. Like I don't think he should grow up with an AI friend because I do feel like that does eliminate the ability for him to interact with people and
mhm.
to have real conversations and to
Yeah.
kind of overcome that anxiety of working with other individuals. So um, I do think there are going to be a lot of children whose parents don't have the resources to dedicate to their kids the time and energy they need to kind of help them through, or also like kids who their peers are all on AI, so it's
Mhm.
like they want to go out and throw the football. Or run around the neighborhood and they can't because all the other kids are indoors, like
Yeah.
where we just used to go up and knock on the door
Of
be
course.
like, "Can you play?" So, I am like you. I think I'm bullish on it. I think it's going to fundamentally. It has already and will continue to
Yeah.
change the way we work and interact in the world. But there will be a lot of negative consequences that we haven't quite understood what those to be. It's kind of similar to social media, and I think
Right.
the
It's
effects of
very
social media.
similar. Yeah. Very useful, but it does create this illusion of connection that maybe is a little bit less real than we all think it is. However, back to the function health results, it's so good at data synthesis, right? At crunching the numbers and then giving you a meaningful output. And there's so many tools now where you can do super advanced workflows for whatever your use case is. I recently did it too with like a BMI calculator where I gave it information from June of last year and then information from January of this year, tell me the changes, tell me the progress, tell me what all this. I'm not a number person. So like I need a tool to crunch those and it's just it can do that so well. And so I got all of this really valuable data from that. And I know so many marketers because I'm in the marketing space as well. They're finding a lot of use for that because otherwise this traditional format of I don't know, just having to do it more manually, crunching numbers, finding trends, synthesizing and then projecting into the future, that has sped up so much. My question is now that this is so fast, how much more are we going to cram into the space of a work day, right? Because we're getting so much more efficient and we're already doing so much because email is fast, social media is fast, everything is so information is moving so quickly. AI crunches that even more. So can our brains keep up with this efficiency maxing that's happening? I don't know. I'm tired. I feel tired.
I think it's there's another thread about a supplement brand that dropped their employee count from like 30 to
Mhm.
16 or something like that, and talked about how that was from a lot of AI tools, most notably customer service tools,
Mhm.
um, user generated content tools, stuff like that. And the kind of the piggyback threads are going to be like, what are these? How do you build a team now with AI? What do those roles look like? Who's doing what and how are they doing it? I think you think about like from an e-commerce perspective, you have a growth person, right?
Mhm.
Now, is this growth person historically? Are they just doing like media buying, or are they doing like the content side of things, or are they doing email marketing, conversion rate optimization? You tended to have like just different people from there, but I feel like now it's shifting towards almost like this managerial type of
Mm.
person who is the boss of bots, basically. So you're kind of building out a team of people who know how to manage bots, like the
Right.
skill of management and accountability and knowing how to point people or point agents in the right direction is going to be the best skill. And then that ability to kind of balance like multiple things going on at once
Right.
is valuable. So I don't know how like there is a limit to like that kind of like that cognitive switch, like where I know this as a founder going from like operations to marketing to,
Mhm.
you know, uh, team leadership to whatever it is. And I feel like I do nothing. Um, but I do think like that is going to be how companies are built. going forward in the future.
Yeah. It's been interesting too on the hiring side of things. I occasionally look at full-time in-house roles. I've been exploring that for the last 2 years. And just in the span of the last 18 months, so many of those roles have basically shifted to if you don't know how to essentially hop on to an AI tool and craft something and show us that you're hands-on with these tools, you're not even going to get a first interview. So the ability to learn the tools and be very curious about them is, I feel like, a very important skill right now. And I think it's going to continue to be because I know some people say, oh, it's just a bubble. This is going to come and go. I think it's
Oh.
too useful for that to be true. It's just too powerful. It's not going back in the box. It's not going away. So yeah, it's just this very bizarre. I'm curious too. There's just so many tools out there. There's so many directions you can go. How, as a founder, do you decide where to start with AI? Do you look at what's most expensive and start there? Like how have you and your team been thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been interesting, being in business for this is our 15th year, so we've
Mhm.
done 14 full years. And the team's adoption to AI, like Toby with Shopify has been really publicly about how they're an AI first company, and he's
Mhm.
really like setting the standard that if you're not on board with AI, then you really don't have a role at Shopify. And I thought that's a kind of bold move to make. And I don't operate the same way. I'm a little more like I'm not going to ramrod something down. Like if people don't feel like it's bringing them efficiencies, I'm not going to force it. But we hit this kind of tipping point where it seems like the output of what you're getting out of AI is worth like the hassle and is kind of worth the learning curve. For me in particular, from a creative perspective, like Grok Imagine and the ability to generate like uh, effectively models
Mhm.
that can say whatever I need them to say in any kind of environment is just bonkers. Where you just have to photo shoot that in the past. So um, when you start doing things and your go-to is AI because it's just seamless and it's easier and everything just kind of works, and that's when the changes are made. I think um, it is a challenging thing, I think, for a lot of team members, and you do have to be curious towards it, um, but also skeptical to it. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
I
where,
agree.
where we fall on it. I mean, what are the major players are, let's, OpenAI,
Mhm.
Claude, and,
Anthropic,
Anthropic,
yeah.
and then, of course, I'm an X guy, so Grok,
Yeah.
and then I think there's a lot of, like, smaller players, Perplexity,
Mhm.
Midjourney,
Yeah.
and then there are, like, tools that kinda build off of these
Right.
platforms too,
Yeah.
um, which I think can be a little confusing. Do you find that those wrappers are bringing value to people?
I do, and I think this all goes back to the heart of what people are learning about AI right now, which is AI is incredibly powerful, but it's got to be prompted in a very specific way. So a lot of these wrappers are helping with the context and the ability to prompt and get very specific outcomes. So sometimes it's just a plugin situation, whereas like 10 years ago, you'd use Zapier to do your integration. So your e commerce software would connect with your email marketing software. A lot of these wrappers we're seeing now, it's kind of the same thing where it's like we want the best in class provider for our marketing, for our SEO, because I'll say SEO because that's where I largely have spent my career. We need a tool that integrates with our data for our performance around SEO and content marketing, but can also help us work from that data set and output net new content or update old posts so that it's ranking well and doing all these things we need it to do. So it's kind of this now, who's the best in class for this very specific use case, and does it have a wrapper to go with something like Claude or OpenAI or one of these tools that's really really powerful but needs a lot of context. So it feels just like V2 to me of, when you first start with Shopify, you got to figure out what your integrations are and what are you going to plug in to make this really effective and use a lot of automation and scale and do all those things. So it feels similar. It feels very similar.
What are your hot takes on the different? I mean, of course, this is all going to change in 3 months or
Of
2 months or
course.
whatever. But
Of
as of
course.
February 2026, where if somebody hasn't gotten started in AI, which I can't imagine is anybody, but if they're open to building on any kind of platform, where should they go, and or what should they expect from using the various tools?
Yeah. I have spent the most time working with Claude. So I think the outputs are really good. I know their whole stance is it's very open source. Very transparent. They really prioritize like the ethical concerns about data privacy and all these things. So I just feel like as a writer, the outputs there for the work that I do have been the best. And it's got a lot of plugins. I mean, all of them do. This is the name of the game at this point. But Claude is a great place to start. Then you can start using things like Cowork. And there's just a lot of functionality that you can do. It's hard to even talk about because it's just so versatile. But if you're somebody who's working on writing stuff or the content side or email marketing or posting on LinkedIn, if you're a founder who wants to do more LinkedIn posts, the outputs are incredible. If you train it on your voice and give it past content and things like that, you can very quickly start building your thought leadership truly in the matter of a few hours. And this has been such a barrier to entry, I think, in the past, where founders think, oh, I don't have the time to do a voice note and hand it off to a human being to write this thing up. I don't have time for that. This is such a great way to scale expertise and to start, again, really positioning yourself as somebody who knows a lot about whatever it is you do. So,
Well, let's talk about that.
yeah.
How do you train AI to nail your writing style and your voice?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for my own work, but a lot of it is feeding it good, super strong examples of brand voice from past content they've published. So giving it points of reference, the same way you would a junior writer or a copywriter that you brought on board. Giving it a lot of brand voice guidelines, so very, very specific. Lots of do's and don'ts. Lots of like, don't use this word. We don't talk like this. We do talk like this. And so this is very top of mind. My last newsletter was all about what kind of context do you need to feed into the machines to get really quality voicey outputs. And so it's just the same way you would train a new copywriter. The person you would hire, the human being, what were all the things you would need to brain dump to them? Um, the AI needs the same thing. So you're very much have to approach it the same way you would as if you had just hired somebody new. The nice thing is you can input it once and it never forgets, whereas humans are forgetful. So it's really nice for that. And you can update it over time too, which you
Yeah.
should.
Does it work better off of, these kind of do's and don'ts and, systems and rules for communication? Or does it work better off of like, let's say I wanted to train it on my tweeting style.
Mm,
Like how do I upload my top 100 tweets or something like that?
yeah.
And will it learn more from that or more from, what I interpret my style to be?
I would say both. So sometimes more examples are not better. Sometimes it can be confused by too much information. Again, the same way a human being can. But I would say like your top 10 tweets, that would be a really good limited data set that it could work with, as well as your general instructions on these are the things I do, these are the things I don't do, and just again like all the context you can give it, everything you'd want to tell to another person who was going to do this work for you, you'd want to tell to the AI. So it's pretty. I mean, it's fairly obvious. This is fairly straightforward, but you really do because AI is built the same way to think the same way that humans do. You really have to teach it in the same way you would teach a human.
What do you when it comes to like prompting for output? So we've already trained it. Let's say we want to get a blog post. Are you saying like keep it to 500 words?
Hmm.
Like cover
Yeah.
these topics, or how are you prompting it to get the best results from a writing perspective?
I would give it the full brief that I would give to a human writer. So that would have all the information on here's the keyword we're targeting, here's the audience information, here's competitors not to reference, here's the data I want you to cite. So you still have to do quite a bit of heavy lifting as far as getting the prompt ready to go to get a quality output. You could give it a paragraph and say like, give me a 500 word blog post on X, blah, 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 right for this audience. And you'll get a pretty good output. But if you give it the full brief, your version one that it spits out will be almost ready to publish. And so it's the matter of do you want to spend a lot of time editing to get it where you want it to be, or do you want to do the heavy lifting up front and get this really great output on the very first try that needs very little tweaking?
Yeah. So what does that editing process look like for you?
Yeah, it depends again on how much context has been given to the tool up front, but editing for me is usually kind of preference based and fact checking. Of course, fact checking because it does hallucinate, it does make stuff up. It will cite data that maybe doesn't exist, or within e-commerce, sometimes somebody will cite a statistic and you can never track down the original source. So it's like, who knows if that's even true? And then integrating quotes from third party experts. So it can't interview, it can't go out and it can't talk to an expert, it can't interview an internal subject matter expert. You have to integrate those after the fact because it can't do that work yet. I'm sure in time, who knows what it can do. But right now, it's kind of the humanity pieces that you need to manually add back in.
With OpenClaw, I've seen some people have set up their agents to make phone calls for
Mm-hmm.
doing reservations, and it
Yep.
will legit like just call people up and talk with them. So
Mm-hmm.
it may be doing interviewing for you if
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you
I
set it up that way.
the question I have about that is the person being interviewed, if they know that it's a voice agent, is that off-putting? Will it affect their answers? Will they be annoyed that the human being didn't take the time to call them? I feel like, again, that's a little bit of a point of friction where if somebody had asked me for my expertise and wanted me to chime in on for an article and then called me with a voice agent, I would be annoyed. That feels a
Yeah,
little lazy.
well, yeah, I think like kind of for that process, it'd be nice to have a human touch, but also, the counterpoint is like to know that the AI will get what you're saying without, having a different slant on it or something like
True.
that, where they interpret exactly what you said or recorded exactly what you said, not um, maybe someone
This is true.
breaking down in language. I think, from a consumer standpoint, I think like if I come to a company and I have this problem and AI can solve it quicker and more efficiently, then you really don't care. Like it's you
Yeah.
call in. I've already had a few of those where I've called in and I've reached like an AI assistant. If it's like real dumb and it doesn't have the tools and the capabilities to do things, then in my opinion, that's where you kind of create more harm than good. But
Mhm.
if you have an AI that has a lot more autonomy, like an open claw agent, and they
Yeah.
can, generate refunds and, send out new orders and do all the things to effectively uh, care for your customer, then I
Yeah.
think customers will be all on board with that. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to care at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating too than not having an option. So I think having some option, especially one that's very resourceful like that, that could be really, really helpful. And again, maybe you don't have the resources to hire a bunch of customer support agents, but this is a great solve for that because it can be resourceful and figure stuff out on its own. That's really nice.
Where do you find the biggest value that you can bring to companies out there right now?
I am learning as fast as I can when it comes to AI, and I feel like it's a fire hose of information every single day. So I feel like what I can offer right now is just I am somebody who's of their own initiative trying to go out and learn as much as they can, approaching it with a lot of curiosity, trying to find really interesting use cases. And I'm also approaching it from the angle of this journalism background where I understand what it takes to develop really strong prompts. And I think prompting is a skill that more people are going to have to get much better at. So the more advanced you are at prompting and understanding how the tools work, the better outputs you get. But also just willingness to learn different functionalities. I think it can be really intimidating to hear about all these tools, to feel very behind, and to just kind of throw your hands up and be like, it's too late. I am already so behind.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
sticking to the fax machine.
yes, yes. So just a willingness to learn new products. And I feel like that is how I've been able to freelance for 12 years and have this business that I run is just you got to pivot with whatever's happening right now. And AI is the next thing. So just learning and getting very curious about all of it.
Where can people follow you, reach out to you, hire you?
Yeah, I'm still on X at Kaleigh F. My first name is a disaster. I don't know where my parents chose it. It's hard to spell, but I'm sure it'll be in some notes somewhere. And then my website is kaleighmoore.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's mostly where to find me these days.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time coming on this
Yeah,
show.
this is fun.
It's been fun seeing how the industry's changed over the
Mm-hmm.
past decade. So,
Yep, very hot topic. I'm happy to
yeah.
talk about it.
As always, this has been another e-commerce conversations. Cheers. Keep on growing.